David Morgan with you of the Morgan Report. Well, I've been doing a series, as most of you know that will be watching this video, called The Crypto Conspiracy. And I think we've done about 15. And we've come really far down the rabbit hole. And the last video I did, we said to take a couple of deep breaths because we were going pretty deep. A gentleman named Credence came on and he sent me an email. I had all kinds of fascinating comments and insights into Bitcoin. And basically what it boiled down to was he was quoting a lot of the work of Boyd Anderson. And as the old adage goes, it's always best to get it from the horse's mouth. No offense intended, Boyd. So I invited Boyd. I tried to find him, and my friend Sean over at SGT Report had just done an interview, which we have on the community sector of my website, my YouTube channel, The Morgan Report. So to get an in-depth background on Boyd, he's got a couple of YouTubes that he's done himself and this long interview he's done with Sean of SGT. And fascinating story. So rather than get it secondhand, we've got the man himself. We're going to try to stick to the topic of the Bitcoin situation, what's going on, but it all bleeds over in a multitude of things, particularly the New World Order, and really where, let's say, one of the most interesting and unexpected places or locations actually is relative to where the New World Order has a great deal of activity. So Boyd, introduction please, and then we'll just shoot off with an open floor. Tell us what you know about Bitcoin that we don't know already.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to touch on my book, Under the Radar 537555, the numbers that changed the course of history. This is, relating to, my one video interview that I do on YouTube. If you want to check it out, it's simply Under the Radar 537555, and it opens up with Obama running for in 2012, his second term as president, and his whole ad campaign was 537. Get out and vote, everyone. The number of votes that changed the history of America. The difference between what was and what could have been. And this is when George W. Bush ran for president in 2000 against Al Gore, and they had to recount the votes in Florida. And of course, how many votes did he win by? His brother Jeb was the governor, and he won by 537 votes. So my hockey record, going back to the junior days in Medicine Hat, Alberta, which is the top junior league in Canada. I played alongside Lanny McDonald, who is now the chairman of the board for the Hockey Hall of Fame, and Tommy Lysiak, who went number 2 in the draft that year, the only player who ever won the Western Canada Hockey League scoring race 2 years in a row. And that was my two line mates. But it was quite a phenomenal night. I'll just touch on it real quick. Lanny was actually in the penalty box. I scored 5 goals in 3 minutes and 7 seconds. This is a record that nobody will probably ever break because the way they play hockey nowadays is a little bit different. So if you divide, and another ironic thing, because this is all about numerology, the New World Order, the people who control the world are into numerology. The Bible is full of numerology, as most people know. I was never a Bible guy. I tried to read it a few times, but I just couldn't comprehend everything, so I kind of gave it up. But I've always prayed, especially prior to going to Dubai in 2007, where I created a contract with Saudi Arabia for 1,000 biofeedback medical devices dealing with frequencies. And the reason they were so interested in my device is because of what's going on today with the virus and the jabs. It's got everything to do with frequencies. Okay, I'm going to touch on this quickly and then get into Bitcoin. But we are going from the age of Pisces, which are two fish. I'm a Pisces. I was born on the Ides of March on my mother's birthday, and two fish is a sign symbol of the church. And so we are going from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius, which is all about the element air and frequencies. And this is why they have us wearing masks and so forth. And then they're rolling out 5G as we speak. A lot of airports, I don't know if you listened to the news today, but a lot of the airports are not running any flights out because of the interference that 5G technology will have, not only with human bodies, but with air plane equipment, landing equipment, showing the distance between the plane and the runway. So yeah, everything is planned out. And what took me to Dubai in the first place was quantum biofeedback, and they wanted to start the sheikh, the Saudi sheikh that was in charge of all the health and food for Saudi Arabia, wanted to start 1,000 wellness clinics throughout the Middle East and put one of our devices into each clinic, because it was a diagnostic and a therapeutic. And not only could it give you a measurement of any imbalances in your physical, mental, and emotional state, but then it could also give you some therapy and try to balance out your imbalances. And the device helped thousands of people around the world, curing. I'm not supposed to use the word cure, but what the heck. It's makes it simpler, but helping to eliminate cancer cells, etc., from our bodies. And it also brings awareness to the individual to change their lifestyle if they want to, continue on. And 99% of it is between your ears. It's all about positive thoughts. Positive breeds positive, negative breeds negative. And I'll just stop at that. But, they flew me to Turkey. Their big ally was Erdogan, the president of Turkey. So I was flown into Turkey to hook him up to our device. And they took myself and Grace, my girlfriend at the time. I call her the grace of God. But after we hooked up Erdogan, for an hour or two, we went to the main hospital in Istanbul and hooked up the top surgeon as well. But to make a long story short, my deal did not go through in the end with the Saudis. So I ended up spending every day with Thomas. Thomas was a middleman who I met. He wore a kippah. He was Jewish. Baseball hat over top. I am not anti-Semitic one bit. I have many Jewish friends, but this is getting more into the Zionist Jewish people. Thomas always said, and this is his quote, "I work for the Swiss Jews," meaning the Swiss bankers, mainly Mark Rich. I don't know if you're familiar with Mark Rich, but he was deported out of Canada.
Money Metals. I think I just finished the book for the second time.
Middleman, yeah. Yeah, he was deported out of the U.S. back in 1974 for tax evasion, fraud, and supplying the apartheid and Iran with commodities, whatever they needed, gold, oil, while they were under American sanctions. So he was pardoned in the last hour of Bill Clinton's presidency, and he was forced to pardon Mark Rich by the president of Israel, because Mark Rich was their shining star. A Mossad agent, along with Thomas, was a Mossad agent. Thomas was heavily connected with Canada. Richard Leibel, who wrote the code for Bitcoin, was out of the University of Regina, Saskatchewan. And this is all connected because Mark Rich started a company called Glencore, one of the largest mining and commodity companies in the world, based out of Zug, Switzerland, where I actually played hockey for 2 games. I was brought in for a 2-game trial, but I never got to know anybody. I was only there about 3 weeks. And I asked some of the guys on the team, I said, "Who pays us?" And they said, "Mark Rich." But, I didn't put it together. That was in 1983. And again, I only played 2 games in Zug. And unfortunately, I never got a contract. So I moved on, but I had put that out of my mind completely. So I was actually introduced to Mark Rich in 2008 in July, and I didn't have a clue who he was. I knew he was a banker. Thomas always said, Boyd, we're going to have Mark fly in from Zurich. This is in Dubai where I was living, and he said, I'm going to have Mark set up a Swiss bank account for you. And because once we get this gold remelted, now the gold that we're talking about is 55,500 tons of gold that was sitting on a military base in Thailand. It was came from the Shah of Iran, and in 1979 they moved it to Thailand. It sat there for all those years, waiting for the right time to move it to Perth. Perth is where the World Gold Mint is, so they had to get it from Thailand down to Perth, and this is where Malaysian Airlines 370 comes into play. There were 5 planes involved. I'm not going to touch on it too much tonight because I want everybody to watch my other interviews that explains it very well. But I was shown a 20-page document in Dubai in the summer of 2008, just after Mark Rich left. And in the document, it was all about Bitcoin. This is in 2008. So Richard Leibel wrote the code. The document started off with a few pages of Bitcoin, and then it went to all the other cryptos. It went to Ethereum, Monero. It showed me XRP, all these cryptos, and how it showed the charts, how they're going to go up and down, and how eventually, well, and they all run on the blockchain, okay? And the big secret that I read was the fact that the Swiss Jewish bankers have the code, the secret backdoor for the blockchain. And this is all based out of CERN in Switzerland. CERN is really the motherboard of the internet. And this is where they control all the cryptocurrencies, all the currencies in the world, basically. They control any catastrophe that is about to happen. CERN is the headquarters of the CIA. I know a lot of people think it's in Virginia. I'm not sure if it's a total headquarters. I believe it is because 99% are Jesuits who are the Pope's military. And it's a long story, but CERN is at the bottom of Lake Geneva. Number 17 is the number I wore when I scored the goals. And number 17 at CERN means CERN is 17 miles in circumference. It's a collider. And it also means the ascension of DNA. The reason they stashed Malaysian Airlines 370 in Kazakhstan, which today they're having all kinds of revolutions, and I'll talk about that real quick here. And they're all being paid. All these revolutions are being paid for with Bitcoin. Okay, it's part of the beast system. So they're pumping and dumping Bitcoin today to develop natural resources in places like Saskatchewan, where I live. Saskatchewan has it all. Saskatchewan has oil, gas, uranium, lithium, helium, potash, canola oil, and all of these things can be used in a positive way or a negative way. Right now, Saskatchewan is being used to kill off the world. It's all about population reduction. Right here in Saskatoon, and there's a big connection between Saskatoon and, say, Kazakhstan, because Cameco, the uranium mining company, head office is in Saskatoon. They make the highest quality uranium they call yellow cake, and it's owned by Kazakhstan. South of here, the capital, Regina, Saskatchewan, is a company that used to be called IPSCO Steel. And back in the 80s and 90s, they built Calgary using IPSCO Steel. Today, it is owned by Abramovich, the Ukrainian oligarch, buddies with Trump and Putin. His daughter is Marina Abramovich. I don't know if you're familiar with her. But we're getting into some dark areas with child abduction, etc. I won't get into that. But IPSCO Steel today is called Avraz, and it's owned by Abramovich. So heavy duty Ukrainian population in Saskatchewan. And we're going to talk a little bit about Khazaria, which was kind of taken out of our history books. But the reason there's all this going on in Russia and Ukraine today, I believe it's all been planned out for years. So, I mean, they're doing the same thing that they did in 2014 when Malaysian Airlines 370 took place. They're creating friction between the Ukraine and Russia. But quite frankly, I believe the top elite, obviously they're working together. When we talk about Canada, for example, like, I hope everybody here understands that Malaysian Airlines 370 and Malaysian Airlines 17 were identical twins. And they both went down in the Ukraine on July 17th, 2014. July is the 7th month. 717 in the Hebrew Greek definition means Armageddon. Okay. This is all in these previous interviews. So let me continue here a bit, and I'll try to fill in the places here where I feel a little bit disjointed here, trying to explain it all. But what I read in the 20-page document, I'll just go back.
Boyd, I don't want to interrupt your train of thought too much, but I'll give you a little bit of pushback here, gently. Yeah. But you talked about Richard Leibel writing the code for Bitcoin, and I've done some interviews here, and purportedly this Craig Wright, Dr. Craig Wright, has a very big influence. In fact, some claim that he is Satoshi Nakamoto. Are you familiar with Dr. Craig Wright?
Well, I've read about him. He's from Australia. I know one thing, that Richard Leibel wrote the code for Bitcoin along with Elon Musk. You see, Richard Leibel went to university at Campion College in Regina, Saskatchewan. When I hung out with Thomas every day in Dubai, he knew a lot of people in Saskatchewan. He knew probably one of the top families in Regina who own over 25 oil and gas companies. And he always said, "Do you know the Hill family?" He said, "I have a strong relation, a strong contact in Yorkton, Saskatchewan." Well, Yorkton is where the Bronfmans started out. Okay, Samuel Bronfman, when he came to Canada from the Ukraine, and again, they were all from the Jewish heritage, background. He set up shop at the Balmoral Hotel in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, and started the liquor business. Bronfman in Yiddish means liquor man. And he formed the relationship with Al Capone in Chicago. That's where Al Capone got all his booze during the 20s. Prohibition was from off the Sioux line, which it was a railway line that they built right from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Elon Musk's grandmother was born in Moose Jaw. His mother was born in Regina, and he still owns a house in Moose Jaw, But there was a direct railway line from Moose Jaw. They called Moose Jaw Little Chicago back in those days. But it went direct from Moose Jaw to Chicago. And this is their liquor line. That's how they got all their booze. Plus a few more things that I won't get into tonight. But this relationship has only gotten stronger over the years. Obviously Edgar Bronfman today owns part of CNN and Boeing. Boeing, which has their head office in Chicago, is owned by the Rothschilds. Justin Trudeau's finance manager when he ran for prime minister was Stephen Bronfman, the grandson of Samuel. So it's a pretty rigged deal, So what I found out when Malaysian Airlines 370 took place, at the same time, I'm trying to do a website for my LED lighting business, and I looked up the meaning of my number 5307. 5307 in the Hebrew definition means to fall to a violent death. And 537 without the zero in it means altogether. This is why I know both went down in the Ukraine. This is why Stephen Harper, our prime minister, sent our Canadian military to the Ukraine on January 1st, 2014, in preparation for this mass murder gold heist. Right after he sent our military over, the RCMP, Canada is a corporation held in Washington, D.C., in the name of the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. We call them the Queen's Cowboys because they work for the Queen of England. Okay, they do a lot of black ops. And they're located right in Regina, Saskatchewan. That's their training headquarters. Right beside Campion College, their recruiting area, school. John McAfee used to come up there and recruit people. One of the guys I used to play hockey against in Regina, Rick Urich, became the president of McAfee Software in Regina, out of Toronto. And I ran into him in 2004. I said, Rick, how'd you ever get that job? He says, oh, these guys from Chicago came up and recruited us. So this has been in the plans for many years. Chicago and Bitcoin, of course, was sold on the Chicago Mercantile Stock Exchange for many years prior. So all the executives from Potash Corp, who have their head office here in Saskatoon, they all live in Chicago because it's too cold up here for them. So again, and this mafia, I call it, is it goes back to the Lithuania, Polish people who after the war came to Canada. And even Elon Musk, I know he helped write the code. His grandfather's name was Haldeman, who worked together with Mengele, the Nazi mind control guy, and Kharkov, the Ukrainian Satanist who ran the Ukrainian military. And those three guys are the ones that trained John Brennan, the head of the CIA, and General Aquino, and another lady who I won't get into, but she was training to be the queen of the five mothers of darkness, who actually run the Jesuits. It's quite a structure they got. But so when they took me in to show me this, Thomas actually handed me the envelope. It hadn't even been opened. He said, have a look, because I was going to be a sacrificial lamb. This is what I was going to be used as a sacrificial lamb. I know that I figured out that Thomas followed what they call the Gospel of Thomas, which was never put in the Bible, but we can talk about that later. But getting to Bitcoin and the 20-page document, it was all about Bitcoin, all the other cryptos. It showed the charts going up and down. It showed the blockchain and how they have the secret code, because they want to try to force all industries onto the blockchain, meaning mining, agriculture, every industry, all the hospitals, get them on the blockchain, because then they have 100% control. They've got you by the gonads. And if you don't abide by their rules going forward, they can destroy a company by tapping into their blockchain. So this is what I read. And then I read about the fact, the 2016 election. It didn't talk about any people, and specifically any person, but it talked about the election. It talked about interest rate hikes, which we're going to see in 2022. And what will happen is around the middle of 2022, they'll start raising interest rates. And if Trump comes back, he might, everybody's going to be rallied up. And this is when they're going to raise rates probably 6 or 7 times. And the American people are going to say, oh, bring it on. It doesn't matter. We got Trump, we got we got Bitcoin, and we're going to ride these cryptos. And so the cryptos could go up this year. I don't think they're going to go up a lot, but they could. But once the interest rates start after the first quarter of 2022, by the middle of 2023, now panic sets in the American public. because interest rates have gone up so high, people are having trouble with their mortgage payments, etc. And of course, the stock market comes down. The price, as they're raising interest rates, the price of gold comes down, because they want to bring the price of gold down. What I read, and I'm just a messenger, don't get upset with me, but they want to bring it down to $700 US and hold it there.
What? Wait, sorry to interrupt your train of thought, but 700 is so far under the cost of production, which is like 1,400 US. I mean, I'm going to argue that it could spike low. Do you know if it's like a spike, or is it like a year?
Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, what they want to do as going forward, you see, because they want Bitcoin will crash to the ground, because nobody knows how to use it here. I mean, and they don't understand, when you're buying Bitcoin today, all you're really doing is helping China, North Korea, the Taliban, ISIS, because they all got in first. Okay, they all got in when it was 10 cents, and this is how they've been able to pump and dump it. Like in 2015, Thomas came from the Eli Lilly pharmaceutical family, okay, out of Indianapolis. And in the fall, I was watching Bitcoin. It was up to 1,500. By the way, I've never owned a Bitcoin. I never want one. I don't want any cryptos. I'm just so put off with it all. These are bandits that are running it. But in November, I guess October of 2015, Bitcoin had shot up to $1,500. And overnight, it dropped to 1,000. And the next day, Eli Lilly purchased Boehringer to get the monopoly on vaccinations in Europe. Okay, Eli Lilly today is the root of all evil when it comes to the pharmaceutical companies. Thomas was an Eli Lilly guy, and today Eli Lilly has millions of vials of vaccines that are called antibody enhancement dependency. Because as they give you these boosters, your body's going to become antibody dependent. So you're going to have to get a booster every month. And Eli Lilly's waiting there, ready to go with millions of vials of their vaccine. And you see, understand, and this is why I want everybody to watch my videos, that 555 in the occult world means highest death. So and Google it, Eli Lilly's vaccine is called LY for Lilly dash COV for COVID dash 555. Now, it's all about the spinning of electrons. It's so scientific. I won't get into it, but even if you Google quantum spin electrons 537555, which is my number, you will see a white paper from a scientific organization all about the spin of electrons. Because in CERN, you see, they're splitting electrons, and they took one 7 miles east and they took one 7 miles west. And when they tickled one of them that went west, the other one responded at the same time. So it's all about duality. They follow the Gospel of Thomas. Didymus Judas Thomas was the 12th disciple. Didymus, and the Bible supposedly was written in Greek and Hebrew. So Didymus really in Greek means testicle or twin, okay? And this is why two planes crashed into the Twin Towers, okay? I'll just talk about that real quick. But that one, they got 30 tons of gold. But they also destroyed all the documents and all the records of Homeland Security, who created ISIS. Okay, and so when Obama freed 6,000 prisoners in 2016, and at the same time, Erdogan, their big ally in Turkey, fired 55,000 of his civil servants. We're talking police chiefs, deans of colleges, teachers, police force. He fired them all because he wanted to create this coup. I don't know if you remember this, but it's all put on. And so these 6,000 prisoners who Obama freed, he said they were just marijuana traffickers, light sentences. I'll guarantee you they were all on death row because they destroyed all the records 9/11. That's, so they had no records of these guys. So where do you think these guys went? They went over to Turkey to fight for ISIS. Okay, Erdogan trained them all, and so when they created refugees and Africa, Turkey, Erdogan was stealing all the oil out of Iraq, and a lot of it was going to Israel because they worked together. I mean, so what's going to happen with Bitcoin here? Bitcoin is part of the beast system, and I guess it was brought in to get people to think about, let's convenience. Let's just use our cell phone, because that's what Thomas used to always talk about. People want to use their cell phones, Boyd. They don't want to go to a bank. We got to get rid of this fiat currency because it's not backed by anything. And he always called himself a banker, but he said the bankers are the biggest crooks in the world and all this. And so really what happened is going to happen is when they raise interest rates 6 or 7 times in 2022 and 2023, Bitcoin is going to crash to the ground. It'll go down to less than $1,000. It's going to go like this because they released the Kraken. I don't know if you remember Sidney Powell, Trump's lawyer, last year at the winter solstice, because, again, we're moving from Pisces to Aquarius. And it's all to do with the winter solstice. But she announced that they released the Kraken. How the Kraken works, they released it back in June of 2017 when Ethereum had gone from $10 at Christmas of 2016. By June of 2017, it was $388. And I don't know if you remember this, David, but they released the Kraken on it, and Ethereum, they were testing it up. Ethereum went from $388 down to 10 cents, 2 cents, I guess it was, 10 cents, and back up again in 2 seconds. Okay, so anyone who had a sell price on it at a lower price for security, they lost all their money. And this is what they've got planned when they release the Kraken. It's 100% controlled out of CERN, the Swiss Jewish bankers, so they can, anything like if the Queen wants to put on a big horse race, she did that in 2018, I think it was. And who won the races was the ruler of Dubai, because, he's the one that backed this whole gold heist with Malaysian Airlines 370. There was Hussein Shazwani, who I actually met 4 or 5 times. That's Trump's best friend and business partner, along with the ruler of Dubai, the ruler of Abu Dhabi, and the ruler of Saudi Arabia. They're the ones that put up the $600 million to back Malaysian Airlines 370's gold heist. While they were doing the search in the Indian Ocean, MH370 is up in Kazakhstan sitting at the Russian spaceport called the Cosmodrome. And the reason is they drained all the bodies of blood because the 17, again, the number I wore when I scored the goals. I know it sounds weird, but Thomas, from the time I met Thomas, he said, "Boyd, you got the numbers." He said, "You're here for a reason. I believe in fate." So I believe I would have been a sacrificial lamb had I stayed with him, because they tried to lure me into this whole thing in 2010 when Bitcoin was only 30 cents. I could have had 100,000 of them, but I said no because I knew he was a bad guy. So I went on my gut instinct and I said nope. And I came back to Canada and I erased his phone number off my phone, and I never talked to him for 3.5 years. Okay, until MH370 took place. And that, of course, that's when I Googled his name. And Nigel Farage, the leader of Brexit, is the guy who they used for their power broker at that time. He's the one that passed the message on to Thomas to call me right away. So a week after MH370 took place, he admitted, that they got $200 million for MH370. And he never told me anything else. I just had to do all the research. And the only thing that they showed me was the 14-year plan. I said, "Who wrote it?" He said, "Richard Leibel, who I went to visit in Bangkok." He said, because he got deported out of Canada, just like Mark Rich did. It's all set up by the CIA. This is all a CIA operation. So, again, getting back to the 20-page document, what's going to happen is In the middle of 2023, getting into 2024, panic is going to set into the United States in a huge way. People are going to leave the country. A lot of them will be moving out. But this could change, okay, because of the coronavirus, a lot of rebellion going on right now. So bear with me on this, but this is what I read, that American people are going to start moving out of the country. They're going to be depending on their cryptocurrencies, which they don't know how to use. The transactions take too long. There's a bottleneck, and the whole thing, this is when they release the Kraken, and it starts to whip around up and down in the market. The prices of crypto start to go up and down. As the year goes on in 2023, it gets more extreme. And finally, they just peter right out. Bitcoin comes down to less than 1,000. Ethereum comes back down to about 500 US. And because if you go on my website, under the radar 537555, and if you go into the blog, you'll see the Gospel of Thomas. Have a look at it. This is what they followed, Thomas. But also the meeting between Putin, the ruler of Qatar, and Ivan Glasenberg, the CEO of Glencore. They signed the biggest deal in the history of the world in July of 2017 to sell all their oil and gas in Eurasia and China and all over Russia, Iraq. They're going to use Ethereum because it handles contracts. Now, so in 2024, when they all crash, Ethereum starts to come back up. But then it fails. It comes back to maybe 1,000, and then it fails. So they got to team it up again with the original Ethereum platform, which was ETC Classic. Okay, that was the original Ethereum platform. In 2015, they divided them. They did what they call a hard fork, and they split them off. And Ethereum went way up in value, but ETC Classic, it's around $35. By 2024, ETC Classic will come down to about $5. And this is when you want to load up on Ethereum and ETC Classic, because the only way Ethereum can carry on to handle all of Eurasia's oil and gas and all these contracts, it has to have ETC Classic's governance. Okay, so it becomes secure. It's a little bit slower processing these transactions, but it's secure. And that's what they want, is security. And so ETC Classic becomes very valuable in the future, along with Ethereum. But there's no rush in buying it right now. But wait till 2024 when it bottoms out. And this is when China brings out the Chinese yuan, and they back it with the gold that's now $700. And they ban all gold mining because it's bad for the environment.
Oh boy, that's something. That's a stunner right there. I don't even know what to say to that one.
This is what I read. They will ban mining because it's bad for the environment. It's all about going green. Now, whether their plan goes as projected, because as you see, there's a lot of rebellion going on now. England is stopping. I just heard it today. Boris, whatever his name is, the Prime Minister of England, said they're going to stop all COVID restrictions, no more masks, no more mandates for vaccines. So, you know, things can be changing. But then you got the backup plans are always there. And this is why Russia has 100,000 troops on the border of the Ukraine. But, you know, understand that like Putin and the Kazakhstan oligarchs and the Ukrainian oligarchs, you know, obviously they're all in bed together. And this is all a facade. I mean, I can talk more about how corrupt the Canadian government is. I mean, you know, I always thought our Prime Minister called the shots, but it's actually the Governor General. They work in a triangle like the Trinity of the church: the Queen, the Governor General of Canada, and then the Prime Minister. The Governor General calls the shot. And at that time, when MH370 happened with this gold heist and all this stuff, David Johnson was the Governor General. Now, if you looked at his traveling records, he was in Qatar, he was in Saudi Arabia. One trip, he spent over $175,000 to go to Saudi. You know, and Stephen Harper, once he sent our Canadian military to the Ukraine on January 1st, 2014 in preparation. And of course, he sticks them in the northern part of the Ukraine. And the RCMP also sent a whole bunch of RCM officers over there. Well, that was in preparation to do the cleanup, because they already knew MH17, when they exploded it in midair, it broke apart into bigger pieces, the fuselage, and it all landed in the northern part of the Ukraine. Okay, they already had this all planned out. And you got the Canadians running around cleaning up these bodies that were 3.5, 4 months old, all drained of blood, rotting, of decomposition, smelling, you know, and this is all proven on videos. A Russian rebel commander even said the bodies were not fresh. They've been dead for days. So this whole thing was planned out. It's all to do with the numbers of 537 and 555. Again, I can get into all that, but you know, this is why Trump moved the embassy from to Jerusalem. Okay, the people in Israel, who are probably pretty close to 90% Khazarian Jews, which means they're not authentic Jews that we read about in the Bible. These are Turkish Mongolian people who were referred to as the Rothschild Khazarian Mafia. This is what we're talking about here. And of course, Mark Rich was one of their shining stars. And, you know, Canada is so heavily involved. The Bronfman.
Let me interject there, Boyd, if you don't mind. Yeah. Made some notes, and you know, I've listened to all your stuff that's available. So one of the main questions that came to me with my own thinking and a couple of people that I've discussed your interviews with is the reason, the idea of taking the gold into the Perth Mint. Well, if the gold was moved from Iran to Thailand, why didn't they just use the same means of transportation from Thailand to Australia? Why did they have to use this airplane, and why did they go to the great length?
They didn't use one airplane; they used 3 airplanes.
Okay, sorry.
3 jumbo 747s. The reason that they moved it is because it was just too dangerous. You try to move 55,000 tons of gold and see what happens.
But they did it from Iran to Thailand, right?
Well, first of all, they moved it from Tehran, Iran. In 1979. 79 is the atomic number for gold. So they moved it while they had that 53. Again, they used the number 53. Okay. That's Herbie the Love Bug's number. But they used 53 hostages. They created a movie called Argo. And this is when they created this diversion. They're famous at creating a diversion. Sure. And this is when they moved the gold over to Thailand. And don't ask me why, how, or whatever, but they moved it over there. And it sat there from 1979 until 2014, waiting for them to move it. And because these guys, they were basically, it was stealing gold. But I don't know if it was stealing it, because Obama, 2 years later, after this gold heist, he goes to Iran. I don't remember that. And he gives them $160 billion in cash.
I remember.
That was a payback. That was a payback for the gold. Okay. In the meantime, they stored this gold. It was not only gold, but it had some silver mixed in. Thomas said, I saw pictures of it, and I wish I would have kept the darn pictures. I've got contracts from Thomas if you want me to email them to you. All kinds of stuff. I've got emails from Thomas. they're real military guys, these, you know, Jesuits, and it's not nice stuff. They were flashing around emails with pornography, you know, not nice stuff. But these were all gung-ho, chauvinistic type military guys, I guess you'd call them. But anyway, yeah, you know, he always said, "Boyd, you've got the number. I believe in fate. You're here for a reason." So I truly believe, you know, once you watch my videos, I can talk more about my numbers. But, you know, 537 BC in the Bible is when Cyrus, Persian emperor, he was married to Isis. They had a son named Horus, who was born on the 25th of December. This is who people used to worship before the creation of Jesus Christ. Okay, they worshipped Horus, the sun god. So in 537 BC, Cyrus freed 50,000 Jews and allowed them to go back to Jerusalem to rebuild their second temple. And this is why Trump has moved the embassy to allow them to build their third temple, which they're in the process of doing today. And it's all about the coming of the false Messiah. This part I did not read about, but this part, I have to say, I put this together myself. So, I mean, you can take it for what it's worth, but I do believe 100% this is their plan, because the only launch pad to the International Space Station is in Kazakhstan, the Cosmodrome. And what they've done is they've taken the DNA, because they drained all the bodies of blood from MH370, and they've taken it up to the International Space Station to create either clones. All I'm going to say is that the Messiah will come, and I believe he will come in March or April of 2025. Since I've done those interviews, I've had one of the richest men in the world call me and say it's going to happen earlier, Boyd. It could happen this April. I'm going, I don't think so, because we got to get rid of Bitcoin first and all the cryptos. And that's going to happen over this next year and a half with the raising of interest rates. It's going to catch people off guard. I believe Trump, you know, somebody's got to rally the American people to say, we don't care about interest rates. Let's just keep going. You know, we can handle inflation with Bitcoin. And it's just a ridiculous setup for failure. The end result is China moves in with their Chinese yuan, backed with gold, and India, Russia, all these other countries jump on to China's bandwagon with their Chinese yuan because it's easy to use. And that's what I read. And Bitcoin flounders up and down and finally peters right out. Ethereum and ETC Classic are the only two that will continue on, is what I read. Okay.
I've just got a couple. No, you being, I can feel your honesty. I mean, and it's for, our viewers to, discern, what they want to believe. You bring a ton of information, and there's lots of connections. So I've got one thought about, how important gold is to monetary history, right? And the gold standard ended August 15th, 1971, when Nixon closed the gold window, is how we refer to it. Now, in the Bible, we see there's a jubilee about every 50 years. So if you go, 50 years ahead, we're basically there now. And this is kind of a let's say, synergistic situation where we have the cryptos that have, popped up. We've got talk in my circles about the yuan becoming the next, let's say, reserve currency, and it is gold backed. So there's a lot here. So my question is, can you connect any dots based on this Jubilee idea that there'll be a new monetary system coming up shortly? Can you address that from what you've read or what you know or what you've researched? Absolutely.
It's called the Shemitah. And every 7 years they have, so they work, this is the Jewish religion. So if they work hard for 6 years and then they take the 7th year off and they let the land replenish itself. And every 7 Shemitahs is the Jubilee. So on the 49th year, they have a double Shemitah, which means it's 2 years of celebration and so forth. So, yes, and after every Shemitah, there is a disaster. Okay. So, yes, there's a huge correlation. I do write about that in my book. I mention it. I also mention a little bit about aliens. You see, that's the next thing that's going to happen is they're going to introduce aliens to the world. And they'll come from this false messiah. Everybody's going to be in awe because, see, Elon Musk has put up 50,000 satellite dishes, not only for 5G, but to light up the world. I don't know if you remember when Trump became president, his first trip was to Saudi Arabia. And they put him and all the sheiks, the same sheiks I was dealing with my biofeedback, they put their hands on the globe.
Remember?
And it lit up.
I remember.
And the Scandinavians, the 5 Scandinavian countries, because they're also ruling, the Vikings, because it's a long story, but they used to mingle with these Khazarians back in 500-600 AD. So Sweden and Switzerland heavily, that's why they're always neutral in wars. But so, yeah, they were kidding the Saudis, who runs the world, Bergen, Norway, or Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, because they're both filthy rich with oil. But they are both heavily involved with controlling what's going on. I lost my train of thought a little bit on the question that you had. That you want me to cover?
Is there a conjunction here with the Jubilee? Where
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The Israel is completely behind this. I believe they want to make Ukraine a second Israel. And because of what's going on right here in Saskatchewan, you see, Richard Leibel wrote the code. Elon Musk helped him out. It was all done in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan, again, is the #1 place in the world. And so just this in the last 8 months, there's probably been at least $12 billion pumped into Saskatchewan. BHP, the biggest mining company in the world, just put in $7.5 billion into a potash mine. They're expanding all the canola oil crushing plants. Now, canola oil is not even fit for the human body. I don't know if you're knowing that, but yeah, okay. And potash also, if it's not used properly, can leave the soil and ruin it, leachy and salty. And then you've got uranium. So you've got all these ingredients to help. And then the food supply. I'll just touch on it quickly. There's a company called Fortress out of New York, but all the investors are from Saskatchewan. We're talking all the politicians, the judges, and so forth. They pumped in $20 million into Bitcoin in 2012. Okay, Ralph Goodell. Now, he's always been a member of Parliament in Saskatchewan, and Stephen Harper. I'm just going to talk about Stephen Harper because he should be put in jail. This guy. Not only did he deploy our military and our RCMP to the Ukraine in 2014 in preparation for the mass murder gold heist, 2 weeks later, he flies into Israel, and he's a keyboard player. He plays music. He plays keyboards. And he plays at a posh function for Netanyahu and his wife and all the top Israeli brass. And he's singing, "Hey Jude," for Didymus Judas Thomas. Okay, I'm getting back to the Gospel of Thomas. But anyway, who's playing the drums for him is Ralph Goodell from Regina, Saskatchewan, our member of Parliament, who just before, have you heard of the Humboldt Bronco hockey team crash?
I have not.
No, 16 young hockey players got killed. I won't even touch that one, but that was a setup. That was a black op. But anyway, where is Ralph Goodell today? He's living with the Queen in England. He's been made Chancellor of Trade between Canada and the British Isles. Now, he's part of Fortress. Fortress, company out of New York, all investors from Saskatchewan, put $20 million into Bitcoin in 2012, cashed in when it went up to 60,000 6 months ago. and just purchased Morrison's grocery food chain. It's the second or third largest food chain in the British Isles, and for $7.5 billion they paid. So what you've got is Canada supplying tainted food, and I'm talking GMO. You got Monsanto here, which is a George H. Bush company. Right here in Saskatoon, they created Agent Orange for the Vietnam War, which killed millions of people. They created glyphosate and Roundup chemicals. You know, all the farmers here use chemicals like you wouldn't believe. So really what they're doing is sending this food over around the world to really not, and a lot of it will have graphene oxide in it, just like the Jabba Jabbas have. And because, again, going back to Didymus Judas Thomas, the twin, they're trying to create a twin Earth, a virtual reality. This is Elon Musk's mind control, going back to his grandfather and Mengele and all these guys. It's the same thing, okay? It's just a carry-on. And it's all about living in a virtual reality. And people will be able to go to Mars and not even leave their living room.
Yeah.
You know? And this is what it's all about. It's to create transhumanization. This is why the National Hockey League and all the sports leagues are involved, because most of the teams are owned by Jewish guys that are in pharmaceuticals. It's a fact. Mm-hmm. You know, I had my biofeedback device in the Ottawa Senators dressing room before I went to Dubai in 2007, because the GM was my first coach and he always liked me. So, but the point is, they were destined to go to the Stanley Cup final, and they were using my device. And I mean, guys were lining up to get hooked up to it. Anyway, they were destined to go to the Stanley Cup. So I phoned the trainer a week before the playoffs, and I said, "Do you want to buy it? You've had it now for 2 months. You must have a good feeling about it. You guys are flying. You're in top first place. You're destined to go to the Stanley Cup Finals." And he said, "Well, no, because the owner of the team, Melnick, who is another Jewish pharmaceutical guy, and I should verify a Zionist, not a typical." And he said, no, we can't have that in our dressing room. Get it out of there. So I picked it up. I had it picked up the next day, and they lost the next 4 games in a row, and they were out of the playoffs. Wow. So I thought that was kind of ironic. But all I'm saying is that when you get into this Gospel of Thomas, this is what Thomas was following. And it talks about the twin. This is why the Titanic had a twin called the Olympia. And that's the one that actually sunk, okay?
Absolutely. Yep.
2 planes crashed into the Twin Towers. They destroyed all the records from Homeland Security. And when they do a black op, they accomplish so many things for the future. And so this is why MH370's identical twin was MH17.
Okay. We're kind of asking old ground again, and that's okay. I only have one more question. I want to wrap it up because we've gone over an hour, and I'm sure we could speak for hours. So here's my big question, Boyd. And you can put it in a metaphorical terms. What we hear a lot here in the States is, you know, white hats, black hats, or good versus evil. You've got the inside track with this Thomas that you spent a year with. You've seen a lot. You've done tons of research. You've connected a lot of dots, and it's gone further out into my metaphor, the rabbit hole, than probably anybody you've interviewed. How do you see this currently, and what's your idea of the future? Are the black hats going to take us down, or the white hats going to overcome it? Or what do you see as let's say you're down to that last 3 minutes and 7 seconds. What's the end look like from here, in your best opinion? Because no one knows.
All right. Okay? Just a recap real quick on Mr. Trump, because I wasn't sure if he was involved, because he's a friend of a friend, and, you know, so I was sending him text messages and trying to warn him, you know, do you know who did MH370 and MH17? Do you know about the gold? Do you know who created Bitcoin and ISIS and all this? And the only guy who replied was Newt Gingrich. And he said, just donate $1 to let us know that you're with us or against us. And I thought, what a ridiculous question. So I just replied, I am Canadian. I left it at that. But what is that? And so it didn't take long. As soon as it didn't take Trump long to verify to me that he was completely involved with this whole thing. And that is when, immediately after he became president, he announced to the world in 2017, right after New Year's Eve, that his best friend and business partner had attended his New Year's Eve party in Mar-a-Lago, and his name is Hussein Shazwani. That's the guy that backed the gold heist. That's the guy I hooked up 5 times to my biofeedback device. And his partners in the heist was the ruler of Dubai, the ruler of Abu Dhabi, the ruler of Saudi. They were all involved with it. And it didn't take Trump long then to hire Alex Azar, the CEO of Eli Lilly, to be his chief of health. And these are the people who brought in the coronavirus, okay? Trump was brought in as president because he was rallying, and he's brought in to divide and conquer, but still to promote the vaccine. You notice how he still promotes the vaccine. He's hooked in with Johnson & Johnson, whatever. But it didn't take him long to announce to the world that Alex Azar would be his chief of health, former CEO of Eli Lilly. And then who got Trump in or who saved him from his 6th bankruptcy in Atlantic City was his chief of finance, Wilbur Ross, who ran the Rothschild bankruptcy office in New York City for 35 years. That's who bailed Trump out, sent him to Hollywood to be the apprentice. If things go well, you could be president. So, yeah. So I don't believe in the white hats one bit. Steve Bannon, I'll tell you what happened with Steve Bannon and Jared Kushner. You see, who runs Russia today is the Chabad Leibovitz, or Shabbat Leibovitz, the Jewish sect. They pretty well run Russia today. They're all billionaire oligarchs. And this is who Jared Kushner has joined up with. This is who John Baird, our former Stephen Harper's Minister of Foreign Affairs, for example, in 2015, when gold had bottomed out, Barrett gold had gone from $55 to $8. And what does John Baird do? He quits the government as Minister of Foreign Affairs and goes to work for Barrick Gold, Hatch, an engineering firm out of Winnipeg, and CP Rail, because there's a whole nother story there I won't get into. But they're going to stop cross-Atlantic shipping. It's all going to come through the Hudson Bay in the future, and then right down the middle of North America, right to South America, via rail. CP Rail already purchased Mexican Rail and Kansas City Rail. So they're in the process of starting that whole project down the middle of North America. But yeah, I don't believe in the white hats personally, because what happened is when Trump announced to the world that his best friend and business partner was Hussein Shazwani, I was in shock because I knew he was involved. And I waited 2 months. This is January. I waited till the end of February. And I get up enough nerve. I send Hussein Shazwani a message. He runs Damak Properties in Dubai, a very successful real estate company. And he has this automated answering type. So I type in a message. Have Hussein Shazwani call Boyd Anderson immediately with my phone number. And I get a reply, what's this regarding? So I wanted to leave it a little bit eerie because they knew me as Dr. Boyd because I had this device, right? I was running around hooking everybody up. And so Thomas got such a kick out of it, Dr. Boyd. So he started calling me Dr. Boyd, and then he called himself Dr. Thomas. So everybody knew us as Dr. Thomas and Dr. Boyd. So I replied back on this message in 2017. I said, it's regarding Dr. Thomas and Dr. Boyd. And I left it like that because they knew Thomas was a high-end Jesuit, the main planner. He's the one that introduced Trump to Hussein Shazwani, okay? So when they got that message, the next day, I'm watching what's going on in the White House, and Steve Bannon and Jared Kushner get into a huge argument. And the next day, the very next day, Jared Kushner's on an airplane to the Indian Ocean, to the Seychelles Islands, having a meeting with the ruler of Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Saudi, and Hussein Shazwani. So, and then a month, not even a week later, because they must have thought I was a spy, or I don't know. I was crazy. I'm just a regular guy. And so a week later, Trump drops the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan. And that's when I'm going, holy moly, this is very sensitive information. Now, you know, you can take it for what it's worth, but this is the top of the echelon of the world here that I got involved with, and I never even knew it. I was very naive. I didn't even know what a Jesuit was until I started writing my book, really. You know, so, yeah, I spent about 7 hours a day for the last 7 years doing research. And I could talk about this subject for hours. There's many different aspects to it, such as Jeffrey Epstein. You know, his island happened to be not even a quarter of a mile off the island of St. Thomas. The fires in Ventura County, California, were all lasered. And the biggest one in Ventura County ignited. And see, the Jesuits were founded by Ignatius Loyola. Ignatius is Spanish for ignite, to ignite. So this Ventura County fire that destroyed thousands of homes and some people ignited at the St. Thomas Aquinas College, and they called it the Thomas Fire. So, I mean, I could go on and on for hours and get into the Gospel of Thomas with you as well. But it's all about the Freemasons and the Jesuits. This is the Masonic cube that I talk about in my videos as well as in my book. But when you add those numbers up in any straight line, vertical, horizontal, or diagonal, they add up to 15. 1 plus 5 is 6. This is how they get to 666. They all worship Lucifer. And I've got that right out of their mouths. They said, yeah, we worship Lucifer. Who do you worship, Boyd? You know, but when you go back to the Gospel of Thomas, it opens up your mind, and it's sort of mocking Christianity in a way. But people have to realize that we all have to be strong individually. We all have God within us. So it doesn't mean you got to go to church or, you know, so many people hiding behind their religions. But this is all about honesty and truth. And again, I'll leave it at that. But I'd love to maybe go on further in another interview if you're interested, because I can tell you a lot more stuff about Canada and some of the nasty things that they're up to with the 5G and quantum computing based out of Waterloo University, which is all relates back to the Rothschild family. The Rothschild family, the original name was Bauer, okay, out of Germany.
All right, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to keep this to an hour or a little past that. So let's just answer this one question. I want to see what the feedback is.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to be.
I have nothing to gain. I don't own any cryptocurrency.
I get a good feeling about you. I mean, I don't know. There's so many vectors here, so many tangents, so many dots are connected. I mean, my head's spinning. So let's just close out with this.
Yep.
If people want to get in contact with you or learn more about your book, what do they have to do?
Oh, you can send me an email. It's simply boydanderson17@gmail.com. I do sell it on Amazon and Kindle. Please check out my SGT report 2-hour interview. It's up to about 118,000 views now. And I'm getting calls from all over the world about it. How I found out about Credence's interview, actually, a gentleman in England got a hold of me via email and said, you got to watch this. So that's how I watched Credence. And I have to compliment him for understanding that I am telling the truth. I think he's watched all my videos. I did 3 2-hour videos, interviews with Odessa Olowitz from Vancouver called Liberty Talk. Those are good to watch. And I did 3 out of Ottawa, Canada as well. So I could carry on about this for hours, but I realize it's already been over an hour, so maybe we can hook up again.
Yeah, let me get some feedback, see if we could get some questions and probe deeper. I mean, you've touched many things that we have in like 15 interviews, MIT, Epstein, how the Middle East plays into it. Gold is tied into the whole equation, as it usually is throughout history, because there's always the monetary aspect. It's usually used as a control. We look at he who has the gold makes the rules. Rothschilds, i.e. Bowers, come up. I mean, you have tied in a lot, so I'm not going to let you say a lot more.
I'll just say one more.
People are going to have a tough time digesting everything you threw.
Oh, I know. It's a lot. There's so many aspects to it. I mean, I knew nothing about human trafficking, but now I do. Put it that way.
Okay.
It's absolutely bizarre, and it's been going on for a long time, and it's got to stop. Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time very much. I have to say, one of the most interesting interviews I've ever done, and a tough one to wrap your head around. But I think it's one of those that you have to play it a couple times. So, Boyd, thank you for your time.
I would like to have another interview if possible, because there's a lot more to it. Like Black Rock Petroleum, for example, they want to bring over 1 million cryptocurrency mining computers, high-powered computers, 1 million of them from China, then put them on 3 different gas plants, natural gas plants in southern Alberta. I don't know if you heard this one, but that's what drove the price of Bitcoin up last summer. And it's all about legalizing sports gambling and sports in Vegas. And again, it's BlackRock and Vanguard. And yeah, I'll stop there.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Don't worry, we'll probably get a lot of requests to have you back. So